Welcome to JobGhost, the podcast, where we talk all things ghosting in the hiring process. I'm your host, Meg Giuliano, and today we've got an awesome guest joining us to share their story. She's known as the Evil HR Lady and has built one of the largest HR communities on LinkedIn and Facebook, and she's also an improv performer. Suzanne Lucas, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Megan. I'm super happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on. Tell us a little bit more about your community, Improve Your HR and Improv Your HR, and anything else you've been up to lately.
So I have a large Facebook community called Improve Your HR. It is for HR professionals. And it's kind of like a support group, question group. It's limited strictly to HR professionals and HR adjacent people. So recruiters, payroll, employment attorneys, things like that. If you have a question, you can come, we'll discuss it. We talk about stuff in the news that's related to hiring, firing, management, all of that stuff. It's an amazing place. And I do think it's the best Facebook group for HR for all. And I realize it's my group, so that sounds a little bit self-serving, but I'm in all the other groups. And I think mine is. So that's the Improve Your HR. And then Improv Your HR is about using improv comedy as a tool for human resources and actually any kind of leadership. And so I have a newsletter for that. And yeah.
Awesome. And I think you're at like 50K or something right now, right?
Yeah, on LinkedIn, I have 50-something thousand followers. So it's pretty good group there.
And you're at what, 30K or something like that on Facebook?
On Facebook, yeah.
People in HR they have a lot on their shoulders to carry.
Well, there is a lot. And, one of the things that I really work for is for HR professionals in the small companies, small to mid-sized companies. So, if you're an HR person at Amazon, there's 1,000 HR people or more. There's someone there you can talk to. There's someone that knows more than you. But if you're the only HR person in a small business, you can't talk to anybody about what's going on. You need that support group, right? You need people who understand what you're going through and who can help you and support you. And so that's a really important thing for me.
So why do you think people in HR have the reputation lately, and I think it's also hiring managers, but HR especially, have the reputation of ghosting candidates?
Because they do. I mean, it's not a myth. It's absolutely not a myth. And it's not new. It seems newer, but I think that's only because we have higher expectations on communication. I'm an old person. My Spotify Wrap said I was 79, which is not true.
I've been seeing those all day today.
Right? I'm like, okay. I mean, it is true. As far as my music tastes are concerned, I am still locked into what I listened to from my parents growing up. You used to, back in the day when I started applying for jobs, you looked at want ads in the newspaper and you had to put a resume in an envelope and mail it. So people didn't apply for hundreds of jobs. You just didn't, right? You couldn't. Nobody did. And jobs didn't get 100 applicants because it wasn't easy to apply. And you were saving your money and you had to put your resume on fancy paper. I'm really old, right? Fancy paper. But ghosting was happening back then too. But now when you apply to a ton of jobs and screening interviews are quick and, setting up Zoom meetings is easy. So they do the first one and then they're not interested anymore. 20 years ago, you would have never gotten that first interview because it was too complicated to do anybody that you weren't really serious about. And so I think there has been an increase that way, but the concept has been going on forever. And now we have an epidemic of candidates ghosting recruiters and hiring managers. And I just laugh because it's turnabout is fair play, that this was not something that the candidate started, that the company started this.
Ooh, that's a hot take that not many people are are talking about. I don't actually think I've heard anybody say it the way you just did.
I'm a little bit controversial today. Well,
Interesting. So you think they sort of learned that from hiring teams and
absolutely they did. And, it's the same thing with, this is absolutely true story. I got a phone call from a manager, and he was so angry because his employee had quit without notice, walked in, said, I'm done. Here's my laptop. I'm gone. Walked out the door. And he's like, this is so unprofessional. He should be giving 2 weeks notice. How am I supposed to do this? And I asked the hiring manager one question. I said, what happened the last time someone resigned? Did you let them work out their 2 weeks notice, or did you take their, laptop immediately and kick them out? And he's like, well, of course I kicked them out immediately. They were going to a competitor. I said, well, of course the next guy isn't going to give you 2 weeks notice. He saw what happened the last time. Why on earth would he do that? Why would he give you notice? He saw that when somebody did give notice that you fired him immediately, and the manager was not happy. But that's exactly what happened. Why, if I see you doing this to me, why would I treat you any differently? And I think every job seeker has been ghosted. It's just, I don't know anybody who hasn't.
It definitely seems that way. Since I've been more involved in this conversation on LinkedIn, I mean, people tell me every single day about an experience where they've been ghosted. And even hiring managers that I work with or speak to, they've said, at one point they were searching for a job, right? And they had been ghosted too. Have you ever been part of a process, or maybe a candidate was ghosted by a hiring manager that you were supporting, or maybe they just didn't receive timely feedback and it impacted things negatively?
I can't say I was ever part of a ghosting as far as hiring is concerned. I spent very little time hiring, but I've certainly been involved in my own ghosting on things like potential clients and things like that. And it's not because I mean to be rude. It's just life gets away from you, and then suddenly your inbox has 200 emails and you forget. So I'm definitely not a perfect person when it comes to getting back, but I do have a good record for candidates, but I haven't had that many candidates. I mean, I've hired people myself to work for me, but I wasn't a recruiter.
Yeah, I think you're right too. I mean, we all have just so much on our plate, right? And with social media and things now, and people feeling the need to constantly be on, I think it can feel challenging to get back to everybody and stay on top of it all.
Right. And everybody's inbox is full. And so everybody that's complaining about the recruiter ghosting them, they're ghosting people too. Everybody's ghosting everybody because we're just overwhelmed. But I do have to say the recruiters with applicant tracking system have the ability when a job is closed to just automatically send out an email to all the candidates saying thanks, but no thanks. And I don't know why they don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's better than crickets, right? And it could be good for them too.
Absolutely. And not knowing is far worse than knowing that you're not hired. Like if you are waiting and holding out hope, and part of the problem is on the hiring manager side, nobody likes to be mean. I mean, I know there's these stereotypes of mean managers and mean HR people, but most people want to be nice. And so when you go and you have an interview with someone, they're like positive with you. Oh, thanks so much. It was great to meet you. You'll be hearing from us soon. And you walk out going, yeah, nailed it. And they shut their office door and go, oh my gosh, that person was awful. But they're never going to say that to your face. And so you've got this continued hope, and you didn't have a chance. It's just how we operate. It's the same reason why it's performance appraisal time right now. You know, it's end of the year, and managers frequently give much higher performance ratings than they should to employees because they just can't bring themselves to say, hey, listen, you really need to improve. But because they don't do that, then, you know, come March, when your manager's just fed up with you and they want to fire you, and you're like, wait, why? You said I was exceeding expectations 3 months ago. What's wrong? It's the same concept. We don't want to give people negative feedback. We want to avoid it up until the point where we blow our tops and tell people what we're really thinking, and then it doesn't go over well.
Yeah, that strategy is always a tough one, right? Speaking of performance reviews, do you think that managers at companies with maybe multiple layers are bringing up in performance reviews with other managers that report into them? So like think like a manager reporting into a director reporting into a VP. Are they sitting down with their managers and assessing how well they do at hiring people?
They should be, but here's the problem with hiring. Most managers manage 3 to 4 people. The average person stays in a job for 4 years. So if you've got 4 people averaging 4 years, you're hiring 1 person a year. It's not really a skill that you're good at. And your boss is maybe hiring 1 person a year. It's not a skill that they're good at either. So your boss is not really the best equipped person to evaluate your ability to hire. And we don't give the feedback that we need. We don't give the training. It's really should be something on the head of the talent acquisition team to make sure that managers are trained, that they're prepped. I got into a ridiculous argument on Twitter today because I'm a ridiculous person, where people were arguing that in this scenario, the scenario was a guy was in for an interview. The hiring manager said, "What's your favorite drink?" And the candidate said, "Water." And the hiring manager said, "Oh, come on, you can do better than that." And the candidate just stared at the manager. And I'm on team candidate here because that's a dumb question. And it's even dumber response. You can do better. You asked what my favorite was. It doesn't, there is no, what's your favorite color? Blue. You can do better than that. You know, there is no better. But people were arguing, oh no, that is a great question, because if they say water, then they're saying they're a dependable, reliable person that, you know, and I'm like, no, it means that they like to drink water. Like, that's it. But there's all these people out there that think they know how to interview and think that they're getting this great psychological insight based on someone's favorite drink. And that's who we have hiring. And that is the fault of talent acquisition, the recruiters and HR. Why are we not training our hiring managers better? Why are we not sitting down with them for each candidate and helping them create a rubric for these are the questions you're going to ask, and this is how you're going to rate people, you know, this is what you're looking for. Because if you can't identify what you're looking for in a question, you shouldn't ask it. So if you can't tell me what the right answer to what's your favorite drink, then you don't answer that. You don't ask that question. You know, what book did you last read? That's a very common question. What are you trying to get out of that? What's the right answer? You know, if I say, oh, I read scriptures because I do every day. Well, and that's not really something I want to bring up in a job interview. I'll certainly bring it up on a podcast. But if I say that, then what do you think about me? It's the truth. Or what if the last thing I read was a thing to my kid? Or am I supposed to lie and be like, oh, well, I always read everything on the nonfiction New York Times bestseller list, which is a lie. You know, what right answer? What's the wrong answer? And why is it the wrong answer? If you can't answer that question, then don't ask.
That's a really good piece of advice. If you don't know what you're looking for in the answer, why would you ask the question? I want to talk to you more about improv. It's called Improv HR. We had some technical difficulties at the beginning, so we didn't really get to get into it. So I want to cover that with you. And then I also want to ask you if you have any skit ideas that could maybe help managers and HR get better at giving feedback and not ghosting candidates.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I do have ideas. I have so many ideas. Because so improv comedy is not a form of comedy that people are super familiar with. You can be. The thing that they know is Whose Line Is It Anyway, which has been on television for, I don't know, 400 years. It's all about audience giving suggestions and building something on the spot. And the first thing you do in improv is you establish your platform or your base reality. And this is based on, you know, the audience suggestion, what your team members are doing or whatever. So if we're doing an improv scene and the audience says, you know, we say to the audience, give us a location. And the audience says, oh, you're at a Burger King. Then we're at a Burger King, right? And then we need to decide, are we Burger King employees? Are we customers? Am I a customer and you're the employee? And for the employees, am I the manager? Like, we have to decide all of that, and we have to do it on the fly. So we don't talk about it before. We just get up and we have to act in those things. So if I wanted to say, okay, I'm the Burger King manager, I would be like, Megan, you are 15 minutes late for work today. And then that establishes that I'm your manager, you're an employee, you're not a customer, right? We establish all of that kind of thing. And then we build this scene on those things. And there's some really, really important business things that we can learn from this. And that first thing is that establishing that platform, that base reality. Who are we to each other, and what is our responsibilities? And this is somewhere where managers, and especially when we're talking about hiring, can be so difficult, because everyone's like, oh, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing here. Like, I don't know how to interview. I don't know what I'm doing. We haven't established that platform, that base reality of, this is what you're looking for. Here are the questions you're going to ask. Here are the things that are going to get you the answers that you need to be able to make a decision and to compare between candidates. Here are the things that you want to look at so that you are not falling for, oh, I really like this person because they were fun to talk with. Mm. Unless you're hiring someone to be your best friend, being fun to talk with is not a good qualification. Or, oh, they went to the same school I did, or they liked the same television show I did, or they commented on my artwork on behind my desk, and I really like that. And so now we're going to be all warm and fuzzy and best friends, which is great. Be friendly with people, but that's not on your list of things, right? So we establish this base reality as the first thing we do in any improv scene. And if we do this in hiring and in management, if we establish our base reality, here are the rules, here's the situation, I'm the manager, you're the employee, here's your list of tasks, your job description, here's my job description, here's your coworker's job description, and we put all these things together, then everybody knows who they are and what they're supposed to be doing. And that makes everything so much easier, right? Because you're not concerned about what's going on and who, what. And this is part of the problem with the whole job search and the ghosting, is it because we never established that. A lot of people will say, a lot of recruiters will say when they bring you in, this is our timeline. We're going to do this, and then round 2, and then round 3. And does anybody ever follow those timelines? No, never. There's never what they say.
It's true.
But they don't update the candidate. So the candidate becomes increasingly stressed because they don't know what's going on. And the recruiter and the hiring manager, they're so busy doing other things that that's not a priority.
And I think, yeah, you make a good point. I think candidates really just want to know where they stand, right? And not be left in the dark.
Absolutely. As I said, it's so much better to say, thank you so much for coming in. We have put the job on hold. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how long it'll be on hold for. Maybe it'll be on hold for 6 months. I don't know. But thank you so much. When we take the job off being on hold, we'll advertise it again. And if you see it again, feel free to apply. Or, we'll reach out to you again. But don't say we'll reach out to you again if you're not going to reach out to them. Because people like to say that. That was another thing that I was coaching a manager on. That they had an employee who had been laid off. So terminated for financial reasons, not for their performance, but their performance was pretty crappy. But in the termination meeting, the manager had said, hey, listen, when something comes back up, you'll be at the top of the list, because they're trying to be nice. Well, what happened is that this employee was contacting me regularly. I was running the layoffs. Are there any positions opening? Have you seen anything? And I'm like, no. First of all, you can apply through the website. But secondly, you had a low performance rating and the chances of you being rehired are very slim, which was then left for me to explain to this poor person because the manager wasn't being truthful and honest. So this guy feels like he's being led on because he is being led on.
Wow. I think there's a huge difference between being nice and being kind. And the kind thing to do is just to be honest, not make promises you can't keep, not say things that you don't mean. And sometimes it also means under promising and maybe over delivering later.
Absolutely. Under promising and over delivering is so much better. So tell your candidate, say, listen, our goal here is to have 3 rounds of interviews or whatever, but things tend to go slow. So it might take 3 months to go through this process, but I'll keep you updated. Great. Now I know that I'm not expecting a call back next week, that I can move on with my life. And also I know not to give up hope, or just let your candidates know what's going on. If the job has been canceled, the job has been changed, the job has been filled, let people know.
It's that easy. And it makes it easier for you too. It's one less thing you have to worry about.
Right?
Get it off your plate.
Exactly.
So I have to know, why do you call yourself the evil HR lady?
Well, because way back in the dark ages of 2006, when blogs were a new and exciting thing, I wanted to create a blog. I've always wanted to be an advice columnist. And so now with blogs, I was like, I can just be one. I can just start my own blog. But I was working in a pharmaceutical company, and it was a very conservative industry. And I knew that there were many people who would not like it if I had a blog. So I needed a pseudonym to write under. And I picked Evil HR Lady because I thought it was funny. And I thought it also represented how a lot of people feel about HR. Because if you get called into your manager's office and the HR lady is sitting there in the office, you immediately know that this discussion is not going to go well. Right? We don't get called in for good news. Never like, oh, Megan, I'm so glad you're here. I'm here to talk to you about your career progression. Like, no, if the HR manager is sitting there with your manager when you get called in, it's equivalent 100%, right? And people often see what we do in a negative light. And some of it is because we're spectacularly bad at our jobs sometimes. One of the things that I know from running large HR communities is that there are some terrible HR people out there. Absolutely. And what one bad HR person affects everybody. But more likely, it's that they don't like the message that we're forced to deliver. Like, one of the things I get all the time, people will send me at least, once a month, I'll get a screenshot of a job application where they're asking ridiculous questions like, what was the socioeconomic status of your parents? And they're like, what is this? And I write back to them and I say, you're applying for a UK job. And this is a standard UK question because they are being required by the government to gather this data. It's not used to evaluate you. But those people that don't ask just go, oh my gosh, HR is awful. Why are they asking me about my socioeconomic status of the household I grew up in? Why are they asking if my dad went to college? Like, that is so nosy. Why are they asking about my sexual orientation? But it's not HR that came up with that. It's the government that came up with that, right? When a CEO says we're going to return to work, I guarantee you it is not the HR department that sent everyone back into the office. That's not who decided that. Who has to deal with it? Who has to roll it out? The HR people. Who gets blamed for the problem? The HR does. And so people have this negative attitude because we are enforcing government regulations. We are enforcing rules that are coming down from above. And oftentimes what you don't see is us fighting in the background for you, right? There was one situation many years ago when I was running layoffs. The company that I was working for, we were selling off a division. And so this division was going to a new company. And when you buy the products, you buy the employees too. So everybody, the people go. And it was year end and we did an annual increase. And the VP over the director level stuff that was being sold.
Could be either one.
Whatever. I speak English. I'm a professional speaker. was like, we're not going to give these people increases because the sale is happening in January. And they knew it wasn't a secret. Everybody knew that they was going, they're like, the sale is happening in January, so we're not going to give them raises. And I said, that's not going to go over well. You really need to give them increases. And they're like, no, nobody will care. They're all going to the new company in January, February, whatever. It was a short timeline. And I warned them and I said, this is going to be bad. You need to, everybody else in the company is getting a raise and these people are not. They're going to talk. They're going to know. The people that have been here, we always do year-end raises. So they expect it. What happened? Everybody else in the company got notified of their raise and this division did not. And they were furious. And some of them were so mad, they quit. And as part of the deal where you're selling off the company, where you're selling off this division, is to sell the employees. That sounds like slavery. It's not, but you're selling the employees too. And as they start quitting, the new company's like, what the heck? Your top performers are leaving. And I'm like, yeah, because they didn't get their measly 3% raise. And so then they had to come back in. And I'm sure the messaging they got was, oh, HR didn't want to give you a raise. I'm sure that's the messaging they got. Because there's no way that the VP was going to be like, I said no raise. And the HR lady said yes. And I said no. And she was right. That's not the message that's going to come on. Who's going to be blamed? I was blamed. I was absolutely blamed. And from that point on is how I learned that after a meeting, you write up a little email and you say, thanks so much. Just to reiterate, you said this, I said this, you said this. If this is incorrect, let me know so that you have your receipts, because I didn't have any receipts to say this was your plan, not mine. So there is, I'm not bitter. So there is a lot of that people see HR as the face of anything negative. And so that's why evil HR leader. That was a really long answer for a really easy question. Sorry.
No, you know what? I'm glad you shared that, because having people like you on this podcast has really given me a whole new perspective on HR, right? Like I've always been in recruiting, but not in human resources per se. And so, yeah, you guys really do carry a lot of weight, and you take blame for things that are not necessarily your fault or your decisions that you just have to. It's your job though to relay the information, right? So I think that's a good reminder for everybody, especially around the topic of ghosting too. It's like there could be more happening behind the scenes that we don't know about,
And sometimes even with, the recruiter is like, I would like to reach out. I'd like to reach out, but I need confirmation from the hiring manager. The hiring manager isn't doing anything. And then it's this, what do we do?
Yeah, it can be super tough. I saw that people writing questions to you on your Evil HR Lady website, which I think is really cool. Have you ever gotten any questions around either from the job seeker or hiring manager around how to handle ghosting or giving feedback?
Oh, I probably have, but I can't think of anything specifically off the top of my head, but I'm sure I have because I've been writing that since 2006. So almost 20 years.
Wow, that's such a good idea. Yeah, I saw you had one recently about something about employees weren't washing their hands and they wanted to know how they could handle the situation.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is people complain about HR. Oh, you guys are so, bossy and you try to act like our moms or the school principal and you shouldn't. And we're, we don't need this, blah, blah, blah. But as soon as there's a problem like that, as soon as someone's not washing their hands, instead of being a big boy and saying, hey, dude, wash your hands, they go running to HR. Hey, listen, I saw Bill and he didn't wash his hands, so you need to take care of it. And then they're going to complain, oh, HR is so, they just think that they're the mother of the company and they're not, we're professional. Okay, well then tell the guy next to you, wash your hands.
It's like when you tell your significant other to stop or start doing something, and then they tell you like, you're not my mom, but then
right.
But then like a week later, they're like sick or something and they need you to make them some soup.
Exactly. And you're like, I'm not your mom.
Yeah, remember what you said? Too funny.
Remember? Yeah.
I always like to wrap up these conversations by asking, what is one thing you think we could all be doing to help eliminate ghosting during the interview process?
I think the number one thing is setting baseline expectations and then sticking to them. So if you say, listen, this is going to be a 2-week process, when week 2 wraps around and it's all gone to hell in a handbasket, because it always does, just go out and send a little email to everybody. You can say the same thing. Hey, thanks so much. Just letting you know there's been some changes in the hiring process and there's going to be a delay. Just let people know.
Yeah.
Then for the love of Pete, when the position is filled, whether it's filled or closed, just if the position is closed, you don't have to tell people why they weren't considered. And if you tell people why, then they just argue with you. So I'm not a fan of telling people why. I am a fan of telling people why in theory. That would be great in theory. But as I said, I didn't do a lot of hiring, but I've done a ton of managing. And as soon as you say no to someone, you can't do that, and they want to know why, and you tell them why, then they start giving you solutions. And the answer is no. You can't do it. There is no solution here. The answer is no.
The feedback can be helpful, but also, to your point, not everybody is great at taking the feedback. And I think there's also some concern out there too for companies that they're going to get sued if they say the wrong thing.
Well, exactly. So if I say, hey, Megan, thanks so much for interviewing, but we decided to go with someone that had more experience in Lego building. And you go, oh, okay, thanks. And then you're scrolling through LinkedIn 3 months later and you say, oh gosh, Jane got hired into that position that I applied for. And you look through her thing and she has no Lego building experience. And you're like, what in the heck? And then you say, oh gosh, well, maybe I didn't get hired. Then maybe it was because of my race or my gender or my religion or my age. And so then you're like calling a lawyer and you're wanting to sue. When in reality, yeah, they didn't hire you because you didn't have the Lego building experience, but nobody did. And so then it took 3 months for them finally to come to the realization that we're never going to find somebody with this experience. So we're going to just lose that. But if they had just said, thank you, thanks, but no thanks, then you would have no reason to say, oh gosh, this person got hired because of some protected characteristic. So, and people say that's not realistic. And yeah, it is realistic. It is real. People want reasons. We want to know why.
I love how honest and straightforward you are. This has been great. Thank you so much for coming on. Tell everybody where they can find you, find your community, get involved with HR Improv and HR Improve, all those things.
So you can, if you're on Facebook and you're an HR professional or HR adjacent person, you can join us. The group is called Improve Your HR. And if you want to be part of the Improv community, I have a newsletter on Facebook called Improv Your HR. And you can find me at www.evilhrlady.org.
Definitely go follow her and definitely go on to her website and read the questions people write in. Very interesting. It will definitely make you think, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much again. And thanks for tuning into JobGhost, the podcast. If you like this episode, please give us a like and review and subscribe to our channels on YouTube and Spotify. Don't forget to get on our wait list at jobghost.ai and follow us on social at jobghost.ai on Instagram and JobGhost on LinkedIn. And remember, say no to ghosting.